I'm Kathleen Staton, the manager of Music Constructed, and we are here today with Cheryl Baker, who is going to talk to you about her decades in the music room and her incredible resource, Lessons from the Music Room, that is one of the most organized, comprehensive resources that we at both West Music and Music Constructed have ever seen for the elementary music classroom. Music Constructed, of course, is part of West Music, and we are here to make sure that your job as an elementary music teacher is as easy as it possibly can be, with support from lesson plans and articles, professional development like this, and all kinds of resources. So thank you for joining us today for this session with Cheryl. How many years in the classroom, Cheryl?
Beginning my 39th year this year.
39 years, 3 ORF levels, authored a book, and has hosted so many professional development sessions. And so thank you for this final installment in setting yourself up for success in your music classroom.
Yeah, thank you. I'm waiting for the last person to jump in there. They're still in the, there we go. All right, well, this is the book. And as you can see, I've been prepping for you all. I put posted notes everywhere and actually labeled them so I can find what I'm talking about every single time. But we do have a PowerPoint presentation with some of the things. So overall this week, we've talked about the setup, and we've talked about classroom management and lesson planning and a bunch of other things yesterday with different ORF and movement and singing and all that stuff. So I have a thing to remind you about with that on one of the slides. So I'll get started. And there's just so much more. You have to hire me back to do more, because I have way more information for you than you even can get. So we'll see how far we get today. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And there's no sound happening, so we don't have to worry about that. So there we go. This is the website address, which is going to be several places on the slide so that you can remember that it's there, because there's stuff over there that you're going to want to get. So here we go. So what we're going to cover today, we're doing it again. How to use the book. We're going to talk about self-care, which we haven't talked about yet. Tips for others, which is in there. There's 4 chapters on how to deal with the rest of the people that are at your school. Performance groups, we haven't talked about that at all. Preparing for a substitute. And then, of course, the resources on the website will be peppered throughout. And I also put one more, and then I wasn't able to make another tab on that, about assessment, because we didn't talk about assessment at all. And there's so many things that you could talk about assessment. And in the music room, it's really hard sometimes to do assessment while you're trying to actually also teach at the same time. It's like, oh, I should write that down. They did a really good job on that. So we're going to talk about that briefly, and we'll see how far we get. So we got just a half an hour. So if you would like to, you can unmute yourself. I'd love to see your faces, because I like looking at people rather than little boxes. And raise your hand. You can use the reaction button, or just unmute and say, Cheryl, stop for a minute. Can you tell me more about that? And I'll do my best. All right, so previously last year, I did Beginning the Year with a Bang, which was really geared toward first year or beginning music teachers. And then the 5 steps for planning a successful musical. If you missed that, you should go back and find it. It is in somewhere on Music Constructed. I know that Kathy knows where it is. You can always ask her. And this summer we did the Successful Classroom series. The setup was the first one. Then we did lesson planning, classroom management, and then orchestrating success with all those different things. So now here's what we're going to do. Let's talk about the book. The book, you can read it cover to cover if you want to, if that's the kind of person that you like to be, and like, ooh, she must have had an idea of what to put where and a good sequence. Yeah, it's a good sequence. Or you could go, you know what, I just need help on special ed kids. So, oh, there's a lesson about that. Or, oh gosh, you know what, I need to know some stuff about what I should do with my PTA. Oh, there's a chapter on that. So you can jump around. I do have a table of contents, but making an index was an interesting experience, and I chose not to make that choice because it was going to take a long time, and it would have prevented me from actually publishing at the time that I wanted to. So that'll be for the next book or maybe the next edition, who knows. So there is a website, I told you about that. It has other goodies. I've just uploaded a whole bunch of files that are talked about within the book, as well as a whole bunch of new things that hadn't been there before, images of my classroom, of activity things. There's all kinds of good stuff on there. So you're going to want to go and check that out. All it takes is your email address. So there. So self-care, let's talk about us. We get sick sometimes. We go to school and we think, oh, well, nobody will do anything if we don't go. Well, that's true. But sometimes you have to stay home and you have to take care of yourself. If you don't, take care of this body that you were born with, sometimes it breaks down. So adequate sleep. If you haven't had enough sleep and you go to school, you're not going to be a really patient and loving teacher, more than likely. You need to hydrate throughout the day because your voice needs that. The studies have proven, I had a really bad year a few years ago, more than 15 years ago. I used to get laryngitis all the time. I finally went to a ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they said, well, you have this and that and the other thing. So and I also did one of my projects for my master's classes on self-care. And it said that music teaching and teaching in general is one of the most stressful things you can do on your voice. And since we use our voices every single day, then we need to take care of it so that it doesn't, we don't develop nodes or something horrible like that. So you need to make sure that you're supported, that if you have a chance to have some sort of amplification so that you're not shouting over instruments or students singing or whatever, then you need to do that or see if you can get them to do that for you in your classroom. Of course, stress release and exercise is really important so that you have the energy and the stamina to keep dancing all day long, if that's what you're doing for your unit and whatever. And when you're sick, call for a substitute. Get ready for that and stay home because nobody wants you when you're sick, and then you'll infect all the other children and they don't want that either. Your mental health, you need to make sure that you are taking care of you, however way that works. Find a good friend, certainly have a glass of wine in the evening or whatever else you need to do to make sure that your mental health is taken care of. So there you go. That lady reminds me of just getting out there in some nature and enjoying herself and letting go of all that stress. There have been years that I've been very, very stressed at different schools. And I definitely took good care of myself and took some preventative care so that I didn't fall apart. So there I have a whole bunch of chapters. We call them lessons. I call them lessons about tips for others. So one of the chapters is about tips for your parents and your PTA. And this one talks about, and I'm using the book right here, there you go, how to get the most out of your music teacher. Here's a little something that you could copy and paste that to your PTA. Here's what you should do. Because guess what? We see almost all of the children at a school, and we can go and bring some lovely music to your PTA meetings and make sure people are there so that when you ask for volunteers, you have them because the parents brought their kids. So there are a lot of different ways that they can interact with us and use us to the best of our ability. Hopefully not asking us 45 million times every single year, but certainly, I would definitely come at least once or twice if they asked me to do that. And nobody's doing that right now, so I don't know what's wrong with them, but they are. I have a whole chapter on how to deal with your administrator. And let me tell you, I've had bad administrators and I've had really, really good ones. I've had ones that were mostly supportive and some that were pretty much out to get me occasionally. So you've got to watch out, watch your back, and then have a good conversation with them, have a good relationship with them. My principal right now that I have, she's amazing. When I go in there, I was the lead of all the specialists. I went in there, I said, you know what, we need to have this. And she went, oh, I never thought of that. So it was good to have those conversations with them. The classroom teachers, again, you need to have, there's a way that you can ask them to be supportive of you and you be supportive of them. So like, for example, I had a thing that I would send out every beginning of the year and say, here's my requests of you. Be on time, tell me what's going on in your classroom if somebody's having a trouble, and do all those things so that we transition the children from one adult to the other adult. That's a really important thing to do, because otherwise they come in and then you've got a crazy problem because it came from the other part of the world and other part of the school, and you don't know what happened. Or this kid's been to the nurse 45 times today, don't send them again. Okay, they're not sick, they're just whining. Okay, just letting you know. So that's it. I have a chapter for veteran teachers as well as new teachers. And I know this book was for new teachers, but I thought, well, if any veteran teachers ever read my book, maybe we should talk to them. Because if you get this at the beginning of your career and then midway through, then you're like, I need some support because now I'm an experienced teacher. So that chapter, that lesson is for you as a veteran teacher. So those lessons. And then there's preparing for a substitute. I used to spend a whole bunch of time going, well, I don't know what substitute is coming. And so I don't know if they can do music or if they are just a person, a body in the room. They agreed to come and they don't do it. They don't even know how to sing. I've had substitutes who came in and performed for the kids, which was not what they needed to do. I've had people come in and even though I made an extensive lesson plan, they played hangman and I'm like, that's not a useful play to do. So I've decided that I pretty much make one lesson plan, but I used to make two, one for a non-music and one for a music person. And then I just pick things that the kids can do themselves. So some things that you can do to help your kids is at the beginning of the year, be prepared. Prepare your kids for the eventuality that you have to be gone for whatever reason. Maybe you're sick, maybe you have a doctor's appointment, maybe you have to go to a conference, whatever it is that you have to be gone for. So they know some games that they could play without you really having to be there. They know how to sing them, they know how to play the game, they know the rules, they know the procedures in the classroom and the expectations when there is a substitute. What are they supposed to do and how are they supposed to act? Of course, you need some emergency plans in case you can't, and I'm one of those people, well, in case you can't bring in your lesson plans and get organized. If you know that you're sick, the night before, you're probably going to spend some time organizing some activities for them before you go home. But if you wake up in the morning and you're throwing up or having intestinal problems or whatever it is, and you're just like, I'm not going to school, I cannot deal with it. You need to have emergency plans so that they can go, here's a binder, here's what you should do. Or there's a file on your Google Drive, and then you just send that link with permissions to anybody who has the link to your office staff who check in your substitutes, and then your person can get all of that information for you. So some things that I have done is I made an actual list of things that would be good for the upper grades and a list of things that would be good for the littles in kindergarten through second grade. I made CDs and made sure that the CD player was out in case they needed to it. I even put little arrows like push this button. I put a little card on it so they knew how to use the thing. And if they have a computer, or if you're going to leave that for a good substitute as you already know about, maybe they can go to Music Play Online and do some games, or if they're bringing their computers, then they can do that. So there's a lot of things that you can do if you're using Google Classroom, or we use Schoology now, which is a crazy thing. But anyway, you can put a lot of links on there so that the kids can pretty much manage them themselves. I'm like, you can play 4 games in the next hour and make sure that you have a little timer so that they know to go to the next game. And then they're all set. Now, on my website, there is tons of things about substitutes. There's letters, there's lessons that I've left. So if you go to my website, lessonsfromthemusicroom.com, you can download those for free. Yay, free is good. So lesson number 5 is all about performance groups. Now, chorus, it's a whole animal all by himself. There's a lot of things that you need to know about when you start a chorus or when you're managing the chorus. You may have auditions, you may not have auditions. You have to find out how old they are. You have to find out what class they come from. You maybe will want to limit how many kids can be in chorus, which I can't ever imagine that anybody would do that. But if your room is only so big and you're like, there can only be 50 kids in this room, that's all I'm going to take, then that's what you need to do. But if you have auditions for anything for chorus, make sure that it's not just you doing it, because then they can't say, oh, you don't like me. I'm like, no, I don't. It's not that I don't like you. It's because something else. So I also had a percussion ensemble. One time a principal said, hey, can you get like a group together? And then 5 minutes before the bell rings in the morning, go out there and play so everybody knows it's about time. And I thought she was nuts and crazy, but we had a great time. We made up a different song every single time. We did 4 parts going on the one time. And the kids that really needed to be there and play the drum, they had a good time. So I have a whole bunch of my percussion ensemble songs that are waiting to be published. And you could do that too with your kids. I also had a recorder club after school at a couple of schools, and we had some great time playing 2-part and 3-part music. They had to be a certain level on their recorders, so they must have passed a few songs, and the certain grade levels were able to go up there. So they had to be a little bit experienced so that they could know what to do. I've always wanted to do a folk dance group, but never have made that through, but that would be certainly one that would be fun to do. And you could even connect that with your physical education teachers, because that's part of their curriculum usually as well. An Orff ensemble, I had one of those. In fact, I'm in charge of the All Virginia Orff Ensemble, which will be performing at the Virginia Music Educators Association conference in November. And they are always really fun. And and you can make up a funny name for them. I was thinking about the percussion group, but we used to be the Dragon Drummers, because our school was called Fong Elementary, so we were dragging. And I know that that's sort of a play on words. We were not dragging, but we were dragons. So there you go. So an Orff ensemble is really fun and really great to show off what you do in class. And then of course, you're probably having some sort of grade level performances as well as your chorus performances. Even at the minimum, you're probably doing chorus and possibly a grade level performance. So those are all in there. And those resources and everything that you might want to do, except for the folk dance groups, since I've never done that, but I thought I'd put it in there. Those forms, like here's a note to go home to parents to say, this is what it is. Do you want to sign up? Congratulations, your kid is in there. Here's when we rehearse, here's how we're going to get a t-shirt, whatever, all the things. I left notes for that on the website. Let's see. Lesson 8 is getting the students to do what you want. Convincing the children that yes, whatever I have planned for you is the coolest thing in the world, and they will want to participate. So you've got to make sure that you're giving verbal directions correctly. Sometimes when you're doing a lesson and you say, here's what you should do, and the kids get up and they don't do that, sometimes it's because you didn't say it correctly. You didn't set it up properly, and they didn't understand the directions, and you didn't check to see if they understood the directions. So it fails, not because it was a bad idea, but because you didn't set it up correctly. So make sure to get them to do what you want is to definitely say it correctly. Keep your eyes on the students, because they do funny things, and if you're not paying attention to them, they're certainly not gonna always be doing exactly what they want to do. And then you're like, have a problem over there. What are you doing over there? Oh, he hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I looked away for 1 second, and there you go. Keep yourself focused, especially if you have one of those problems over there. You can't just look at that problem and deal with that and forget the rest of the class, because then they will do some other things that you don't want them to do. So it becomes a nightmare with classroom management. And then always I like to give children choices about, well, I am excited about doing these two things. Which one would you like to do first? I still want to do both of them, but I want to know what one they would like to do first. And that makes them feel like, oh, we would like to do this. I'm like, okay, let's do that. That makes them feel like they have a little bit of power in the classroom. And then also, especially, I've talked about that I'm an educator, allow them to create the music. If they have a great idea and they raise their hand and say, hey, Miss Baker, what if we did this with this song? You should do that, unless it's totally crazy. But you should try it and see if it goes well, and take a minute to honor their idea, because then that increases the likelihood that somebody else will do that too. So that's partly how. There's more in that lesson, in that chapter in the book than I can put today, but go look at it and read it and you'll have a great time about that. Teaching them how to get along with each other. Did you know that we are behavior management for them, as well as how to, have them do other things? My dad, I have a story in the book about my dad. He was a middle school math and social studies teacher. And he taught me a lot about how to deal with kids and how to get them to, get along with each other. He says, you don't just teach your subject. You also teach how to be a friend, how to work in a group, how to be part of a team. So these are the kinds of things that I talk about in this lesson. How to be a good friend, speaking up for what you need. Like somebody will sit there and they'll be all mad and they won't tell anybody that they need to use the restroom or they need a Kleenex or whatever it is. It might be a small thing, but kids feel like they have no power in the classroom. And unless we give them that chance, or that, I'm inviting you to say what you need, raise your hand. If you have a burning problem, please let me know. Handling kid-sized problems, that's, you got to think about, kids will try and solve their own problems, but sometimes they do it incorrectly, or they do it a little bit over the top, like somebody's hurting them or touching them or bothering them or whatever they're doing, somebody's messing with them in some way. They'll tell them to stop and then they'll start yelling, or they might hit them back. And so you need to teach them how to handle kid-sized problems, and then when to call the teacher and say, I can't get this person to stop doing whatever they're doing, please help me. And I always say, I'm your hero. I will come to your rescue. I will believe what you are saying. Just let me know, but don't try and solve everything, because sometimes you just need an adult to take care of that. When you're doing cooperative learning groups, I don't know if anybody's ever doing those anymore, but they used to have, like, we'll put people in a group of 4, and there'll be one person that's the leader and one person is the secretary, and there's people, everybody has a job. But that really helps when you start thinking about doing some center work or things of that sort, so that they know that they're all supposed to do something and everybody has a job to do. And then they practice that. That's another way to help build community in your classroom. And that's good stuff. And I also ask them to work with different partners. Don't always pick the same partner every single time. Part of doing a play party dance or whatever is that was a learning to find out about the people in your community. Back in the olden days when they lived out in the country, the only reason why they got to meet people was because there was a wedding or some special occasion. And so that was when they got to know their neighbors. So you should need to know your neighbors in your classroom as well. Getting along with everyone, that kind of goes without saying. And then major problem students, there's always one. There's always one that is a little bit hard to handle. They don't raise their hand, they blurt out all the time, they can't stay in their seat, they wander the classroom, whatever those people are. Sometimes it's something you need to go talk to the teacher about, or if they're a special ed kid that they need to have some behavior management, something like that. But you should go and look at my classroom management session that we just did, and they'll give you more information about those kind of people. All right, so classroom integration. Oh my goodness, I just did a TEDx on this, but it hasn't been published because the recording was not very good. So I get to do it again, and hopefully it'll be out there sometime soon. But I talked about how important music is in a child's life, because we are teaching music, that is our thing, but we also help everything else. We help language arts. We teach about, reading and going from left to right. We talk about patterns with math. I did a whole thing about, if you looked at a rhythmic sentence, a couple of phrases, and tried to break that down into 4 beats, the math is quite hard. And fact of the matter is, if you did that with fractions, most of the 6th graders could not do that, probably. So it's really fun to say, yeah, we do math every day. They just don't know that we're doing it like that. So that's really fun. PE, of course, with our dancing and things like that. Art, we're being artful with our bodies. Science, I just did a big thing this last year with the science of sound. And we did experiments in the music room about vibrations and about highs and lows and all kinds of things. So that's really good. And of course, social studies, we're talking about the history and what was happening in the world during this song when it was written and things of that sort. So we connect. And if you find out what they're doing in their classroom, that makes those connections even stronger for all the students. That's lesson 16. And my TED talk goes way farther than what I put in that book. So now, musicals and talent shows. I did a thing for Music Constructed last year about musicals, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that is in my book and on the website about how to put one together, how to put a rehearsal schedule together, how to do auditions, how to make sure that the kids know what they're auditioning for, planning and building a team, all those kinds of things. And then talent show, nobody ever talked to me about talent shows, but that's always really fun at the end of the year. You just would not believe what kids can do. And they'll just surprise you. And like the one who's been the quietest one will come up and sing a song, from their toes, basically, and just really think, that's really good. So you always, there's a lot of forums about that, how to do auditions, how to have a team. I always had kids who didn't make it into the talent show. They got to be the backstage people, and that made them feel like they were part of it, and they still got to be on stage and doing things. So they would take the microphone off and put the microphone back on and turn on the lights, turn them off and shut the curtains and open the curtains and tell people to go. And they were great, and they had a great time. So that's our big thing. Again, those forms are on the website. Let's see, special needs students and their teachers. We haven't talked about that as well, but it's in there. All those kinds of things that we're talking about. I'm not sure. I'm talking about the people when I'm talking about aides. It's the instructional assistants. They come in with some of the kids who need someone to remind them to sit down, to not touch people and things of that sort. You need to have a conversation with them so that they know what to do. Otherwise, they're going to do what they think they need to do, and that may not be what you want them to do. I've had aides that have shouted at the kids in the middle of the class, and I'm like, no, we don't need to do that. So it's good to have a conversation with them. There's budgets and fundraising. Gosh, I told you, Kathleen, we were going to run out of time. It's 2:29 already. Budgets and fundraising. There are a lot of ways to fundraise nowadays. Join your PTA and ask for funds. Go do a GoFundMe page. You can even charge a little bit for your musicals to help pay for all the stuff that you need to buy or to create for your musical if you're making costumes and stuff, or discuss with your administration about the budget if they'll let you. Most of the time they say, no, we don't have any money specifically, but if you want to ask me, you can. And that just, well, I'll ask for the moon. I always have a wish list. Somebody's always going to say, hey, we've got $3,000. Would you like what you need right now? And you're like, I have a list. Here you go. So that's always good. Assessment, I can't even talk about it. So I'm just going to tell you there's some things about that on the website, as well as a whole chapter, lesson 26 about that. So we're running out of time. And then there's the resources on the website. There are videos of me. There's an online Zoom interview with a friend of mine from Las Vegas, and we talk about music. There are images from my classroom organized by what they're about. So you can see those. There are a bunch of files that they talk about in the book. And my intention is to keep adding those files throughout the year now that I have a good website that I know how to interact with. And then there's places where you can talk to me or send me notes about whether or not you'd like me to come and work with you privately, or if you'd like to have me come to your school. I do travel, but we'll have to figure that out and see how far I might go or when I could go. Obviously the summertime for teachers is way better than during the year, but who knows? We could work something out. So there's that. So there we go. 231, dun, 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 dun. How to use the book we went through, self-care tips for others, performance groups, preparing for a substitute. We talked about all the different resources that are on there. And you should go look at the assessment ideas. I have some great ideas because that's one of the hardest things to do. So if you have any questions, write this down and send them to me later. CherylBaker15@gmail.com. I promise that I will send those answers as best I can to you. CherylBaker15@gmail.com. And this is what the book looks like. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And there's my website again. And we are going to give away a book.
We are going to give away a book. And if you didn't win a book in one of these 5 sessions today, I highly recommend that you go check it out. Sometimes people promote their books or their work or things like that, and you can't really guarantee that you're going to be able to use it immediately. But the number of handouts and rubrics and ready to use resources that Cheryl both has shared in these PDs and in the book are truly incredible, and they are high quality, ready to use. So I just can't recommend it enough. In fact, West Music wasn't carrying this book, and I sent it over to them and I said, hey, you've got to see this. And the team was blown away by the quality of this book. So there's a little promo for you there. And Ava, I just wanted to, I know you've been here and I think I have my list. Have you won a book yet? Because if you have not, you are the winner today.
Yes, I won it yesterday. Thank you.
Okay, good. I wasn't here yesterday, so I'm thrilled to know that you won that book. And so then that means that actually Peter has won the book. And so congratulations to Peter. We will be reaching out to you to make sure we've got your address. And to the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us for PD here at Music Constructed. You can find more information about Cheryl's resources and other professional development that she's done on our site. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Cheryl or to us. We're happy to be part of your journey in any way that we can to support you as you continue to keep music in the lives of all of your children. So thanks again from Cheryl and from us at Music Constructed for joining us today. Have a great start to your school year.